Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Ed Leaders Network webinar, E-Learning in Place of School Cancellations. My name is Arlen Peebles, and I will be your host for the session today. I want to draw your attention to the GoToWebinar control panel before we get started in case you have any technical issues at any time. First thing I want you to look at is the audio panel. Most of you are joined by your computer audio, and that's perfectly fine. That's the preferred way of listening. But if you do lose audio or it starts cutting in and out, you can switch over to the phone. The next panel I want you to open is the questions box. This you can type into as you think of your questions. We have a very large crowd with us today. We had a record number of 960 registrants. We want to make sure that all of them can get in and participate. We will try to get to your questions at the end of the session. We'll leave some time for that, but do type in your questions as you think of them. And a quick disclaimer before we begin the presentation for today is that this webinar was originally developed for school cancellations due to snow days. It is not necessarily designed in response to the closures happening because of the coronavirus. The ideas and the strategies shared may not be appropriate for our current situation. I just wanted to share that with all of our attendees. Got a quick question already about sharing the PowerPoint. Yes, I will follow up in an additional email with a link to download the PowerPoints shared today and also a link to the recording of today's session. And if there aren't any further questions, I'd like to turn things over to Nick Polyak. Nick, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. Good to be here with everybody today. And I'm happy to share what we've been doing at Leyden High School District 212. Maybe lay a little bit of groundwork too on this topic. So I'm just going to kind of jump in and keep in mind, everything I'm going to tell you about today is what Leyden has been doing for the last 5 years with e-learning, but it's been in regard to snow days and winter closures, wind chill, and things of that nature. And so I thought it would be best to start kind of at the beginning of the origin story of how did e-learning actually come to pass in Illinois. So it started in the winter of 2014. We all remember that winter well. It was very wickedly cold that year. And we had closed a couple days in a row for excessive wind chills. And I was sitting in my office and I was looking at Twitter and I saw a superintendent in Indiana who was retweeting his teachers' e-learning plans. And so I reached out to him. We direct messaged each other. Within about a half hour, we were on the phone. And I asked him to share the language that their legislature had used to create e-learning in the state of Indiana. And so after that, found out it was happening in Minnesota and Ohio and Pennsylvania. Again, this was back in 2014. So we got that language and then found out that I wasn't the only one looking into this. Doug Domaraki in West Chicago and John Hutton in Gurnee were also working on this. And so we got that language to Representative Fortner in Springfield, who proposed a bill to open up e-learning for the state of Illinois. After that, we ended up with all kinds of drives down to Springfield to meet with committees and try to help ISB understand this and move the ball forward. Every time we would talk to them, however, we got bogged down in seat time and clock hours, because back then we were still formulating our general state aid based on attendance data and then measuring that by how many clock hours kids were in the buildings. And so we kept running into that wall. And so we kept lobbying. We were working with EdRed, with LEND, with IHSDO and other organizations, back and forth with ISB and the legislators. And eventually what happened was they created a pilot. It was a 3-year pilot for 2015-16, 16-17, and 17-18, where they were going to let in 3 districts to experiment with e-learning, report back to the state to see about ramping it up or opening it up more widely. But if you remember the years that followed, we set up this e-learning pilot, and then the next 2 years, the weather was phenomenally mild. And so we had e-learning available to us, but we didn't use it for the first 2 years at Leyden. It wasn't until 2017-18 that we actually got to do this. They continued the pilot into 2018 and 2019 so that we could get more data. And as you all know, then the Wild West happened where everybody could kind of do whatever for a while. And now it's open to the state to submit e-learning plans and move forward. So if I think all the way back to the beginning of this, I think it's important to talk about the planning process we went through. We took about 6 to 12 months to plan our our approach to e-learning. We brought together kind of a robust committee that had teachers and students, parents, support staff members. There were administrators, special education teachers, technology staff, members of our English language teaching staff, and the leadership from our teachers union. So we had a series of meetings over this time where we got together and we just started throwing topics at the wall and saying, all right, what do we need to think about? We came up with ideas about Wi-Fi connectivity. You know, it doesn't make sense to give kids devices if not every kid can connect at home. We talked about how do we want to handle attendance? How do we want to handle lesson delivery? What role does the learning management system, for us it's Schoology, but for you it can be whatever, but how does that play into this? And the group working together came up with a shared philosophy on a few key points. So what we said is, no matter what we do for e-learning, it can't be a waste of time for the kids. It needs to move the curriculum forward. So we don't want to have prepackaged lessons waiting for a cold day to come up, where we pull them off a shelf and give them to the kids, and it's not meaningful or relevant to the work they're doing. It needs to be what was going to happen in class that day. We should be having an e-learning version of that to move the curriculum forward. We said as a philosophy, e-learning is maybe not better than being with your teacher, but it's certainly better than adding days at the end of the school year. We talked about the fact that the state tests don't move. Well, maybe they do this year, but typically the state tests don't move. AP exams don't move. And so by adding days at the end, we're robbing our students of preparation for those somewhat high stakes opportunities. We know that seniors, graduation days are set. So if we add days at the end of the year, maybe whether it's 8th graders or seniors in high school, they're not coming back for additional days. That's just lost instructional time. So e-learning is better than adding at the end of the year. But I think maybe the most important philosophy we came out of in our committee is that school is not a building. School is a collection of experiences. And so if we can teach our kids that you can learn anywhere, teaching and learning can happen no matter where you are, that's a life lesson. And we see it in our teaching ranks. The vast majority of our teachers are earning master's degrees now in either fully online programs or blended programs. And so as the adults, we're doing that and we're modeling it. Wouldn't it be great if we could use this e-learning opportunity to teach our kids that learning can happen anywhere? So, you know, as we went through this, we came on a lot of big questions, a lot of big topics for us to figure out. And because Illinois was a little late to the party compared to some other states, I had a lot of people to turn to, superintendents in those states I referenced earlier, to get guidance. So one of the first big things we talked about is what's the correct amount of work to assign for students? And to a person, everyone I spoke to said, don't overwhelm the students. Have reasonable expectations of what they're going to accomplish during an e-learning day. If you think that they're going to do 50 minutes of math and an additional 30 minutes of math homework, they're going to be frustrated, you're going to be frustrated. So you need to have reasonable expectations for what kids are going to do. The next question was, what happens if they don't do their work? And we made a very strategic decision to separate absenteeism and work completion. So we set up a Google form where kids could check in every day, basically saying, hey, I'm here, I'm present. So all they needed to do is type in their first name, last name, click submit, and they are present for the day of e-learning. That's different than completing work, just like coming to school is not the same as doing the work you have to do at school. As funny as it sounds, you could come to school and be present and not do anything. We wanted to set up a scenario where a kid could be present in an e-learning day, but maybe not complete all of their work. So we separated those two. We talked a lot about our plan for low incidence special education students and our English language learners. So in this situation, we actually borrowed from our friends in some of the other states. Ohio specifically told me that their e-learning plans use the phrase blizzard bags. And so they sent home materials that were open in case of emergency. And so we adapted that for some of our special ed population. Keep in mind, many of the students that have an IEP can participate just like everyone else. Maybe they can participate like everyone else with some level of support. But if that's not the case, we had our case managers create custom lessons that could be taken home by those students in anticipation of e-learning days that are relevant to their unique IEPs, that are at their levels, that are manageable. And so that's how we handled that. One of the questions we came to a little later in our meetings was about the impact of e-learning on support staff members and wages. There are a lot of 10-month employees who are dependent on kids being there. So if you hire your own bus drivers, your own cafeteria staff, your maintenance, your custodial, what do you do with those folks? And we said to our union, we're not trying to save money here. So if there's a way those people can work from home, we're going to find a way to do it. One of the other options we've used is to add training days at the end of the year. So if there's a lost day of pay, we'll make it up for you at the end, and we'll have AED and CPR training or whatever kind of professional development you might want to have there. We've also contractually made it to where on the first e-learning day we call each year, support staff members can convert one of their sick days into an additional personal day, so they can use it from their allotment and not lose pay. So we've had some creative responses that's evolved over time. But even within the certified staff, it's kind of clear to think what teachers do on an e-learning day, but what are counselors going to do? What about your technology staff, your instructional coaches, your librarians, your administrators? How do you set up office hours or availability so that you can support one another on these days? And we wanted to be clear that there can also be regular school cancellations. So if we're not ready for an e-learning day, the timing wasn't right, or we don't want to call it that, we can still cancel school and make it up at the end of the year, just like your old traditional snow days. So here are some of the unique things that we did. We worked with our teachers union, and we set it up such that I need to call an e-learning day by 10 p.m. of the night before, so that teachers can adapt and plan. And this goes back to our philosophy about moving the curriculum forward. We said, if we want it to be relevant, teachers need time to prep what they were going to do the following day and convert it to e-learning. And so whether they want to stay up that night or they want to get up in the morning, lessons have to be posted by 9 a.m. the next day. And so we wanted to build in that flexibility for staff to create meaningful lessons. We deployed over 200 Wi-Fi hotspots to families that don't have regular internet at home. We didn't ask for any proof of that. We just said, if you need it, come get them. We did the Sprint Connect Ed grant, and so every kid has Wi-Fi connectivity. I talked about our Google form for taking attendance. Our students on the committee said, this needs to be a consistent experience. I can't have one teacher email me and another teacher say, check my Google Classroom, and another one say, I'm going to email you through Gmail. So we said, in Schoology, we created an e-learning folder that's consistent through every course, and every kid knows where to go to get their expectations. Our technology staff and instructional coaches are available all day on e-learning days to support. We said, we treated the assignments like a sick day. The work you need to turn in, you get the e-learning day plus a day to get it turned in. Because we know there might be power outages or any number of other things that happen that a kid might not be able to do the work right away. So we built in some flexibility. And I'm happy to report, having done a number of e-learning days now, our staff and student attendance are the highest of the year while we're on an e-learning day. They check in, our staff does what they need to do. And so, if I can kind of start to wrap up on my portion of this, giving some advice, what we've learned is to go slowly with your stakeholders up front. It seems a little funny to say, given the situation we're in the state right now, but for us, giving some time with our teachers, our union leaders, and parents and students, everybody has questions and concerns. So building a program that takes in their concerns, works with them, is very important. Build in flexibility. We don't want to be seen as we're taking away, snowball fights and all the fun things that come from school cancellations in the good old days. So giving kids flexibility, giving the adults flexibility, because many teachers will be home having to watch their own young children while other schools are closed. And so there needs to be some flexibility built into this. As I said before, biggest advice, move the curriculum forward, be true to what you do, but don't overwhelm the students. Make it reasonable, but relevant. Don't forget your support staff. Don't forget the implications for all your different employee groups. You need to make sure you're taking care of people and thinking about all those interests. And the last piece of advice is simply encourage creativity and fun. I always tell the story that on the very first time we did an e-learning day, we had a teacher challenge his students to go out and take videos making snow angels out in the snow. And they did. They started flying in on Twitter to the district hashtag. And then the teacher went out and he did a snow angel to respond and thank all of them. But we're not trying to stop fun. We're trying to keep education moving forward, but remain flexible at the same time. And so we'll share these slides. But like I said, we're happy to help. Whatever direction you need help with, whether it's on the HR implications, the curriculum, the technology, special education, anybody from Leiden here is willing to help you with that. Just reach out to us. So given that, Arlen, I will turn it back over. And actually, I think we're going to transition over to West Chicago.
All right, thank you so much, Nick. Moses, I'm going to make you the presenter now. Please bear with us, attendees, while we transition to Moses Chang's slides. Moses, you are on.
Sounds good. Let me just click over here. Give me just a second.
Okay, looks good. We're seeing your screen now. And we are seeing the PowerPoint slide.
Very good. Well, good afternoon, everyone. And again, thanks for joining us. Nick did a great job of outlining really the nuts and bolts and the history and the framework of e-learning. From the very beginning, Leiden and West Chicago and Gurnee have kind of gone on this journey together. And with Leiden being a high school district and same as West Chicago, you're going to find that a lot of the information I'm going to share parallels what Leiden is doing. And so I will try not to repeat some of the great work that Nick has already shared with you guys. Just to give you a little bit more context as well, this process for e-learning is continually evolving as technology changes and new apps come online. Our teachers are finding great ways to be able to bring learning and teaching to new formats and new opportunities through technology. So really is the right time to get into e-learning and take advantage of all the opportunities that it affords for all types of learners, really. And that's one of the bigger benefits that we've seen is that this technology and e-learning platform is not specific to one type of learner, but really touches on a great deal, a great variety of learners and how they respond to information. Just to give you a little bit of a context, West Chicago and who we are. West Chicago is located 30 miles west, approximately, from Chicago. We're not in Chicago. We're closer to Wheaton and Geneva than anything else. We're a single high school district, and we're pretty diverse. We have about 2,000 students, and we're 65% Hispanic, 26% white, about 40% poverty rate. And we have 3 different districts coming into our district. And each of those 3 districts have a variety of technology experience. This is a process that we started, as Nick indicated, about 5 years ago. And 5 years ago, I was a principal at the high school, and so was intimately involved in how this whole thing started for West Chicago. And obviously, in order to go e-learning, you have to have technology on board. So this journey for e-learning really begins with our OnetoOne program. So let me give you a little bit of context with regards to that. In about 2013-14, we started to dip our toes in the water in exploring what does technology look like within a school environment, and can it be integrated and be more ubiquitous in how we learn, not just once in a while, but throughout the day and in all content areas. And so with that, we formulated a technology ad hoc committee. And at the time, the school district in North Carolina, Mooresville Graded School District, was one of the leaders in the nation in going one-to-one. And so we arranged a site visit, met with the administrators and the teachers there. And without a doubt, when we came back from the trip, it was pretty clear that this was something that we had to do in some form or fashion. And while we're pretty tight on funds, we had to figure out a way where one-to-one technology for our students was going to happen somewhere down the road. As we were in Mooresville, one of the things that became pretty clear to us was that the one-to-one program that we wanted to adopt needed to be uniform across all students. One of the ways that you can go to one-to-one is through a bring your own device platform, where a student brings whatever technology device they can to the school. And as we were there, we quickly found out that that created a lot of headaches, especially when it came to ensuring security and filters. And so it was quickly decided by our committee that we needed to have one uniform device across the board. And so the following year, we started a pilot program testing out various products. And at the time, the two major products that were available that schools were using were iPads and Chromebooks. And so as we piloted that program with a variety of teachers who were really not explicitly on the cutting edge of technology, but were pretty comfortable with it, we landed on using the Chromebook as a device of choice for our students. We also looked into, along with the Chromebooks, you had to look at various LMS systems and how you were going to deliver instruction. Google Apps for Education was a huge product for us to lean on and utilize for our district. And so with that, we really dove headfirst into Google Classroom. Just like Nick talked about at Leiden, did a lot of professional development, allowed teachers to explore and play with Google Classroom and other apps, and also had teachers who were on the cutting edge of technology teach other teachers. And that was one of the key pieces that we took away, was that it was really important to have people within your school who were on the cutting edge of technology, who were very comfortable with it, who understood the classroom side of it, and so could really merge the two together. And so come alongside their colleagues and demonstrate what a lesson could look like. So as we went through that same process, we obviously had to develop the Wi-Fi infrastructure. And so we spent a lot of money adding Wi-Fi spots all over the building, and then incorporated a GoGuardian monitoring software to make sure that we can just keep some eyes on what our kids were doing during the day. In 2015-16, we decided to go all into this one-to-one program. So we rolled out 2,000 plus Chromebooks to all of our students. We talked about what was the best way to do that, talked to some districts, and the option was either you phase it in one class at a time, or you just bite the bullet and jump all in, and we decided to bite the bullet and jump all in. So rolled out 2,000 Chromebooks. Our expectation that year was simply to get teachers comfortable using Google Classroom, whether it's for pushing out information, syllabus for their classrooms, or assignments. It was just kind of taking that nascent step and just moving forward with it. As we rolled out one-to-one, we also decided that it was important, looking ahead to e-learning, what the connectivity access was like for our students at home. So we took a survey, and at the time, the students indicated to us that there was about 10% of them that did not have internet access at home. So we secured 100 hotspots through Verizon, and we did do some practice e-learning days. There were basically days where kids came to school, and as a way to kind of explore what this might look like, as well as be able to provide real-time troubleshooting support, we took certain days of the calendar and kind of make them practice e-learning days while the kids were present in school. And so that way we were able to gather feedback pretty quickly from both kids and teachers as to how well things were working. And from there, we developed our procedures. And then also, as a support to our students, we identified areas within the community, businesses that did have free Wi-Fi. So your Starbucks or your Panera, other businesses that would allow students to go there in the event that we called an e-learning day and they were not able to get Wi-Fi at home. As Nick alluded to, there were procedures that were put in place, and the procedures we used at West Chicago or use at West Chicago are very similar to the ones that are used at Leiden. In the event that inclement weather may be happening, and we all have the opportunity now with weather apps to take a look ahead and see what might be coming, we do put announcements in our student announcements to inform them to start taking their Chromebooks home, and our notification timeline, just like Leiden, is 10 p.m. Other general procedures, our teachers are not expected to be in constant communication throughout the day on an e-learning day. There's no strict office hours, so we do not institute a bell schedule in any form or fashion. The notion is that on an e-learning day, it's obviously an e-learning day is called because there's an emergency situation, so we do want to allow families to take care of that. So our teacher expectations are to be available throughout the day and just to be able to be in communication with students as they need help. Student attendance, students are asked to submit their attendance by 1 p.m. for each class through Google Classroom. And when it comes to our lesson plans, we had a long discussion, just like Leiden did, as to what really would constitute a lesson. And the important part of it wasn't to keep kids busy for a 50-minute or what would be an analogous 50-minute classroom. The important piece to this all was to be able to provide something that was similar to the standards of the rigor and quality of information and learning, and so it's not just busy work. But we did give a general guideline that about 30 minutes of work would be appropriate. And anecdotally, students after a day of e-learning, you'll often hear how they felt like they had more work to do on an e-learning day than on a regular in-school session in class. Our technology department is available throughout the e-learning day to provide assistance for students and teachers. Similar to what Nick communicated with what they do at Leiden, our special education teachers do a great job of, first and foremost, communicating early with parents about what e-learning might look like for their son or daughter, because each son or daughter has unique needs, and so they wanted to make sure that they had a personal communication with them first so that parents can ask questions and understand how an e-learning may impact their son or daughter at home. For our lower incidence students in special education, there is a blizzard bag. You heard Nick refer to that earlier, but kind of a blizzard bag of activities that we do send home with our students who are in special education that way. So the takeaways that we had from West Chicago are several. The first one is that the students are pretty resourceful. I mentioned that earlier on we did a survey of our students and Wi-Fi connectivity at home, and 10% of them said they did not have Wi-Fi access. However, on the e-learning days that we've conducted, we found out that on average only 25 hotspots were ever checked out, and that was on the high end. And so somehow, some form or fashion, Wi-Fi was available at home, and students rarely complain about not being able to get their work done. As I mentioned before, kids oftentimes come back from an e-learning day saying that they felt like they had way more work than what was in the general classroom, and so that was one unpredicted takeaway. And in year 5 now, going on to year 6 of one-on-one learning or e-learning, really the one-on-one environment has created a culture in our school that makes technology and e-learning or learning remotely or using online resources more normal than anything else. It definitely felt different and strange at the very beginning of our one-on-one journey, but now that we are 5 to 6 years into it, this really is the norm of who we are. So when we talk about e-learning, it's more understood and embraced than anything else. And as Nick mentioned, flexibility is key when it comes to being able to make this work. Things do happen and things change all the time. You have issues with technology that don't work out perfectly when you want them to, and so flexibility is key for both the teacher side of things as well as the student side of things. And with that, that's our journey, and here's the contact information for West Chicago. More than welcome to contact us and ask any questions that you might have. And then with that, I'm going to pass it back to Arlen.
Thank you so much, Moses. Appreciate sharing all that you've been doing there in West Chicago. I'm going to transition the presenter baton over to Colleen. And Colleen, you can unmute yourself and go ahead and show your screen when you get the prompt. Colleen, you are still muted. Hopefully she's still there. Colleen, the mute button is the little microphone icon, and it's probably turned orange right now. Let me see if I can unmute you myself.
Yes, I couldn't get to it because you flipped me over to presenter first, so it froze the screen.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay, we can hear you now, Colleen.
Okay. Can you see the screen now, Arlen?
No, we can't see your slides yet. Make sure there's probably a pop-up window somewhere that says show my screen. You see it, Colleen?
I'm looking for it.
Okay.
It says show screen.
There we go.
Is that working?
Now we're looking good. Yeah, we're seeing your first slide. Thank you.
Okay, great. So hi, everybody. Good afternoon. I hope everybody's hanging in there, given the state of the state. I'm not going to try not to repeat too much what the gentleman before me shared. Suffice to say, Gurnee was the only pre-K-8 school district that participated in the pilot. At the time that we started the pilot, I was not the superintendent of schools. I was the assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction. And so I was in charge of figuring out how we were going to do e-learning with pre-kindergarten through 8th grade students. So it was a little bit of a different position, but I've been involved since the very beginning. At the time that we started this, we had been a one-to-one school district for a number of years with devices with every child, kindergarten through 8th grade, 24/7. So we didn't keep the devices at school. Every child was able to take their iPad home. Pre-kindergartners kept them in the classroom. So when we found out that our then superintendent, John Hutton, had participated in the pilot, we began the process of trying to figure out what this was going to look like. And I will tell you that we really did spend almost a whole year of early release days getting that together and looking at a number of different iterations as to what that would look like. So what I'm going to show you is a little bit of stuff that happened over the different iterations that we participated in. So I'm going to start with something that's a video that one of our kids submitted to us at the end of an e-learning day that we've done. Arlen? Arlen, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. Sorry. Just had to take back the controls. We're going to roll your video now. Colleen, we'll see. You may need to mute.
Oh, we spend a
Okay.
good deal of time with our families and our kids, letting them play around with the device and using it to create videos and movies, and as evidence of learning is important in our district as well. As Nick mentioned, as well as Moses, we approach the e-learning days as necessary to move learning forward whenever possible. But as you can imagine, with pre-kindergarten through second grade students, it's not always going to move the learning forward. Oh, now I have a pop-up, Arlen.
Yeah, sorry, we're back to you. You got to show your screen again. When we do the videos, I have to bring it myself as the presenter.
Okay, well, I can't get out. I'm frozen now.
Might have to hit escape on the PowerPoint. Then you should be able to see the pop-up. There we go.
So one of the things that we focused on was the concept of the 5-hour day. And as I mentioned before, that 5 hours cannot be 5 hours on the device for our students. So we use the device as a launching point for the e-learning days. And the kind of the guidelines that we give to our teachers is, again, it's 5 hours is less than you're thinking in real life. So the first time we did an e-learning day, they way overplanned. This next time we did it, which was during the polar vortex, it was much more in line where we're at. And some of our middle schoolers bragged that they were able to finish the day in 4.5 hours, and we were cool with that. We give them the guidance to use it as a day to review recent content and to try to move things forward with pre-learning activities for upcoming content for our students that are, again, pre-kindergarten through 8th grade. Not all the work is done by the device. As I said, we can launch it from the device. So as you saw in the video, you'll see some kids, they're reading books, they're writing papers, they're using paper and pencil, which is a novel, exciting idea for some of our kids. They do their work, they might snap a picture and send a picture in as evidence of completion, or do a video like you just saw as evidence of completion. I do have one more video to show you, which I know is going to kind of disrupt the presentation, but it's an example of how morning meetings, which many elementary districts have as a part of their regular day, can be conducted during an e-learning day as well. So Arlen, if you could take over and show that next video.
Okay. Here we go. Morning meeting is coming right up. I don't have the play button. Let me try this again. It's not cooperating with me this time.
All right, well, we'll skip it then, Arlen. Why don't we just go back?
Okay, let me, oh, I think I got it. Here we go.
Hey, Miss Spangler, one goal I have for today is to finish all my learning work and stay on task. And how I'm feeling today is fired up.
Colleen, I'm going to come back to you. Make you the presenter again. You'll share.
Oh gosh. Hold on, I got to get out of here again then.
Yeah, hit escape on your keyboard to get out of the presentation mode, and then you'll see the show my screen button.
I'm trying, the show my screen button is frozen my screen.
Okay, I'm going to come back to myself for a second and then come back to you. Are you still there, Colleen?
Yeah, I just can't, I'm frozen because of the show my screen button.
What do you see on your screen right now?
Now I've got it. All right, continuing on.
Hold on, Colleen, I
Um,
haven't made you the presenter just yet.
Okay.
I'm gonna make you the presenter. And then when you get the show my screen option, click share.
Okay. That screen freezes my screen, Arlen. If you could take that away, I can get back out again.
There we go.
Okay. So as I said, we did a lot of planning during early release days over the course of a full school year. What we learned through our iterations is that it works best if they divide and conquer and they break up into teams and teams across buildings. So we have school buildings that have the same grade levels, multiple school buildings, and we encourage them to co-plan across buildings so that each teacher wasn't trying to design every single lesson for every single content area for every single e-learning day. And so they do that. They work collaboratively using Google Docs and those types of tools to create lessons that can be shared amongst one another, especially in a situation like we were in the polar vortex, where we employed 2 e-learning days over the course of those 3 days. And we put a regular emergency day in between those 2 days. We don't employ e-learning days in back-to-back days in the elementary district here. We don't do that because we're not convinced it's the best way to keep learning moving forward for our youngest learners. So we try to use it in a balanced approach. So we balance e-learning days with emergency closing days, and we are planning to do that as well during this time period for the week after spring break, unless Governor Pritzker does call that another act of God week. We're slated to be out, and we will alter emergency days and e-learning days throughout that week for our youngest learners, and particularly our special education kids. As the other guys have mentioned, we also employ Blizzard bags. We use Blizzard bags with the pre-kindergarten students. We use Blizzard bags with special ed students, amongst others work that we do during the course of our school days. Our teachers have certain assignments, our aides have certain assignments, our special education teachers, everybody has assignments. Everybody has a list of kids that they do wellness checks and calls on, caseload calls, all of those types of things, nurses. They're all checking in with our kids throughout every day. And all of that came out of our planning and the things that we thought through before we even had our first e-learning day. Also involved in the planning process are the building administrators and the district level administrators. We spent a good deal of time that first year of planning, reviewing lessons to make sure it wasn't going to be just nothing but 5 hours on the iPad doing apps. That is not what we wanted to do. We didn't think that was in the best interest of anybody. As you saw in some of those pictures that were just up, we have kids building, using 100 Legos to do things. We have kids sorting their silverware drawers and taking pictures of which piece of cutlery do you have the most of, do you have the least of. Take a picture and send that to your teacher to show why you think that. Make videos, build forts. We try to make it as creative as we can. If you have a snow day, we encourage kids to go out and build the biggest snowman that they can. Or make the largest snowball that they can, measure the circumference, cut it in half, measure the radius, whatever it is to get the kids up and moving around. Their day is the exact same day that they would have had they been at school. So PE teachers have e-learning day plans, music teachers have e-learning day plans, and on that day, the classroom teacher reminds their kids of which teacher's e-learning plans they need to access during the course of that day. And Moses talked about, practicing. We do practices of e-learning in our district. If they're emergency practices or unannounced drills like you would a tornado drill or a fire drill, the kids will come back into the classroom and the teacher will announce, okay, we're doing e-learning for the next hour. And we do that so we can make sure the kids know how to log into their device and access the e-learning tab on their teacher's website to start their day. It's a way of assessing where our kids are at to make sure that they're ready to go. We also need to make sure that we're checking in on how much help is going to be required by a parent. One of the things that is most difficult at the elementary level is the level of parent support that varies so widely for all of our families. For some of our families, you have a ton of parent support and they're all in. We have a neighborhood where all the kindergartners go to one parent's house, all the third graders go to another parent's house, and they play school during the course of the day, but they're all doing similar types of work at similar types of levels. Kids can help one another, and it gives the parents a little bit easier focus. At the same time, we have parents that are working and cannot be there. And so we do offer the ability for kids to turn their work in after the e-learning days are over. We give them 5 days to turn in work. If they'd like credit for that day, they have to turn their work in within 5 days of us returning. And that allows our parents to come home from work possibly and do the work with their kids for an hour after school for 4 or 5 days and then turn it in. The other thing you need to be wary of if you're doing e-learning with pre-kindergarten through 8th grade is that a lot of parents are working from home now and they don't want to be interrupted. So those drills help you figure out which students are going to need more help, how do we differentiate those plans better for them and make it more accessible for them, and maybe they just get a blizzard bag so it's a little bit easier opportunity for them to get through their work that they're working on. We communicate about our e-learning plans in any possible way that we can. We have a video on our website, which you're welcome to look at and see how our e-learning days run. We keep it in our weekly communique. We notify our parents as soon as possible. We do not wait till that late the night before. We watch the weather. If we think it's a possibility that there's going to be an e-learning day, we will send devices home with every child the night before, whether they've signed a permission slip to keep it for 24 hours or not. So last week on Friday, every child went home with their iPad because it was obvious we were not going to be in school for an extended period of time. And so we wanted to make sure that everybody had a device. So anybody, even if the parents didn't sign to have, we have about 4 to 5% of our population who prefer not to have the device come home. It went home with those kids. They don't have to use it. If they want to use a desktop or whatever, they can still access our program, and the parent can take the device and put it away for the time that they're home. We send home text message, phone messages, and email blasts, and our notifications through our websites, and then our teachers reach out through whatever tool they're currently using, whether that's Remind or another tool, to let them know that the e-learning day is coming and how to launch it. We launch all of our e-learning days off of our website through their teacher's website, their actual web page. Every teacher is required to have their web page linked to our website. You go to your teacher's place, you find the tab that says e-learning, and it launches from there. For some of our teachers, that's the site. For some of our teachers, it launches and it says, go to the Schoology page. Our middle schools, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, they do a lot of digital learning just as a course of the matter of their day. So the launch is really for continuity for our parents. Find the teacher's web page, click on the e-learning tab, and go from there. It gives them all a common starting point. Trying to make it easier for parents, because once the kids get to 3rd grade and higher, they're pretty self-sufficient with this. We also provide a lot of support for our families during these days. Yesterday, just like every other e-learning day we've done so far, we run a back channel that allows our technicians to follow along to see any children that are having technical difficulties or internet problems. If it's an internet problem, obviously they can't access the back channel. We have a hotline. The hotline goes to our tech director. He funnels it out to whichever technician works in that building so that they can help that child via phone help solve their problems. Our teachers are monitoring their emails and the platforms they're using to deliver and the back channel throughout the workday. The teachers are available to assist children during the scheduled school day. If they choose to do the work after school and turn it in 5 days later, they can bring their questions to school the next day. This is kind of a screenshot here of what our back channel might look like and the conversations going on. It might be a parent writing in, it might be a student writing in. And you can see, well, you wouldn't know this, but we've got tech teachers responding, we've got classroom teachers responding, and making sure we're staying on top of it. Now, one of the things we have noticed is some of the kids like to turn the back channel into a social media chit chat place, which you kind of have to shut them down on that so that you can keep going with that. And then, as I said, everybody launches from their teachers' websites. And so if you want to go onto our district webpage, you can go to a teacher's website via that our website, and you can see what their e-learning tab looks like. So I just launched to a 5th grade teacher's page, and I'm going to go to her e-learning day directions. Now, these were just updated because we did one yesterday. And you can see all materials are in Schoology because that's the platform they use. And then she walks them through everything they're going today. You can see here, go to gym. It takes them to their PE teacher's e-learning website, so they do gym for that day. If they had art or music, you would see the same thing. Down here's the directions for the band kids from the band directors. Everybody provides lessons for our kids throughout their e-learning days. What was most interesting for us was how hard our kids wanted to do this just the right way. And so on the very first time we did e-learning, we had a student sending emails to their teacher asking if it would be okay for them to have lunch now because it was 11:12. So it's been very interesting. And like I said, we do take a very balanced approach to it. And that seems to be working well for us. I don't know how we're going to do moving forward, but that's what we're going to do. So some of the things that we have to be aware of is the concerns for parents and the interruption of the large number of parents that work from home now, how you're going to support your primary students and your special education students. And then unexpected benefits we found were our ability to check in on kids when they're home alone. In an emergency day, when we close for snow, we're not checking on them to see how they're doing. And we found on more than one occasion a child that felt unsafe or was scared. And so that was a nice benefit for us to have a platform where that child could reach out to a safe adult at school to help. Parents that are home are seeing that this isn't, you know, a cakewalk teaching and managing kids. So that doesn't hurt either. And they get to see how their kids can work with and without distractions. And families working together is another unexpected benefit of the e-learning days. And like everybody said before, my contact information is there. Arlen's going to share the PowerPoint, and I'd be happy to include our website address and directions to find some samples in our video if people are interested. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Colleen and Moses and Nick. We do have quite a few questions that came in. I do understand that there is a 2 o'clock webinar that ISB is hosting and putting on about e-learning. So if you need to switch over to that webinar at this time, if you're an attendee, I know it's sold out, which I think is about 1,000 people. So hopefully you were able to register. They're offering another one tonight at 4:30. That one also is full. But so we understand if you need to log out now before the questions are answered and get over to those webinars, you may do so at this time. For those of you staying with us, listening to the Q&A, we're going to start with Nick and address the questions that came up, Nick, during your portion of the presentation. The first one is, for elementary students who are not as tech savvy or homes without internet connection, how do you collect attendance if they cannot utilize Google Forms?
Well, Arlen, we are a high school district at Leiden, so I guess I would defer that attendance question back over to Colleen.
That's a good call.
Okay, so for attendance, our teachers check in with every student during the course of the day to see how they're doing. So we know whether they're involved or they're not involved, and they don't get credit for attendance unless they've completed the work. So that can come in throughout the e-learning day, or as I said, 5 days later.
Okay, next question that came through while Nick was presenting. For the case managers creating custom plans for students with IEPs to take home, what if the students are already home? Did you figure out how to differentiate instruction to meet accommodations per IEPs virtually?
I think we're probably doing that right now. I know that I've checked in with my special education director. Her contact information is in our slides, so it might be better just to reach out to her directly. with that question, but I know not only are they doing that on the fly now, they're also touching base with those families on a daily basis through email, text, phone calls, whatever the relevant way to connect with them is, to make sure that they understand and they support them through this.
All right, very good. Thank you for that. Also, Nick, do all of your students have devices? You mentioned you deployed hotspots, but what about addressing the digital divide in terms of devices?
We do. I know Moses talked about that a little too. We are one-to-one with Chromebooks, and we've been that way since 2012. So the device issue, we didn't have a problem with. We just needed to solve the connectivity issue.
Excellent, thank you. So Nathan wanted to thank you for sharing your information. How are you adapting this to e-learning in regards to COVID-19?
We it's a work in progress, I think is the first answer to that. We gave all of yesterday to our departments to meet in course teams virtually for them to plan and coordinate with one another. So we're using the same constructs in terms of our attendance system, where we're providing work, but as part of this COVID-19 extended closure, we actually broke our schedule into A and B days. So we have half of our classes, the even classes meet on one day and the odd classes meet on the next. So the teachers don't have quite as much to plan on every day and kids don't have quite as much to manage. We can do more than we would maybe on a regular day, but we're chunking it into half and half on A and B days. We run a traditional schedule at Leiden, but for this extended closure, we're doing A and B days to subdivide the work.
Excellent, thank you for sharing that. All right, this question came in during Moses's portion. Have any schools, but anybody's welcome to answer this one. Have any school districts used title grant monies to purchase hotspots?
Yes. Gurney District 56, we use that to fund some hotspots. But as mentioned before, the numbers that we require get smaller and smaller and smaller by the year.
At West Chicago, we did as well. We used Title I funds for our hotspots.
Same here.
Very good. All right, Colleen, these final questions came in during your portion, but again, Nick and Moses, feel free to chime in if you have additional thoughts. We've heard quite a bit about technology device usage, but what sort of opportunities, past experiences have you had in creating e-learning opportunities for our families without technology access at home?
Well, as I mentioned, we try to launch from the device, and so teachers don't really spend a ton of time thinking beyond, how to do e-learning for families that have zero technology, because we provide all the technology. Every child has a device, and we provide internet access for anybody who doesn't have it. But we do try to create activities that aren't always device dependent. But it's not a general focus for us for e-learning. We try to take advantage of all the technology that we have available to us. And we know that we're doing it equitably because every child goes home with their device those days.
I can add, in addition to what we're doing, having talked to folks in other states, one of the common responses I got was some districts put wireless hotspots on school buses and brought them to different parts of their community where there might be a concentration of families without wireless. And so they just deployed those in a way that kids could log on to those school bus wireless hotspots.
All right, very good. Colleen, this one's for you. What is included within the Blizzard bag?
Well, we usually put in some games, little cut out cardboard bags with different games in them. There might be a book with an audio tape in it. There might be a set of directions for the parents for an activity, especially for our special education students. Keeping in mind that our preschool kids it's only a 2.5-hour day that we're filling in for them. So it's activity cards, Ziploc bags of games, books with tapes, those types of things.
Excellent. And this question is for any one of the three of you. We currently have one-to-one within the school building, but do not currently send devices home. Is there a large concern for sending devices home and having them get lost, damaged, forgotten at home when you need them back at school?
So that was a big concern for us when we first went one-to-one 7-8 years ago. And we were sitting in a meeting, have a conversation about what grade will we start sending the devices home. And we quickly realized everybody's going to go home because we had to outsource the electricity to recharge our devices every night. Or else we'd have very expensive, heavy paperweights sitting there because we did not have enough outlets to charge everything throughout the buildings. And so we have a protection plan, and we do have some break fix that comes up, but nowhere near what people would think. When you first think you're going to put devices in their hands and let them take home, people have visions of kids using them as frisbees and things. And it's not like that. We do have normal wear and tear. We do have some break fix, but not to the extent that you'd be afraid of. And the one thing that we learned is our kids get their device, and it's their device from year to year. So if they mess it up, they're working on one that's been repaired instead of in the pristine condition it was when they got it.
Excellent, Colleen. This follow-up question is for you. What do you use as your back channel?
I believe it's called backchannel.org. And it's the third back channel. We started with one that worked really well, Today's Meet, and they went out of business. So what we're using right now is backchannel.org, I think, but I can confirm that and add there's actually a link. The PowerPoint will be a PDF. Let me see if I can get that to Arlen and confirm with our tech guys.
That'd be great. Here's an open question. What do the librarians do on e-learning days?
You want me to take that one too?
Go ahead.
Our librarians are working on their long-term lesson plans, and they have a caseload of kids that they'll also check in with. They have lesson plans that they might have a book on tape and discussions that are set up in advance for the kids to log into if they have library that day.
So our librarians, I happen to have gotten an email from them this morning that went out to all of our students. They sent out some resources for all of our students about how to check out ebooks, and gave their names and email addresses in case kids needed any help with that. They shared some Twitter handles and asked kids to tweet at them with what they're doing. But then they're also a resource for our teachers. So if the teachers need a resource for an e-learning lesson they're creating, they can contact the librarians to get resources.
And our librarians at West Chicago do the same. They function more as a resource for teachers to provide materials and web links to support the learning that goes on an e-learning day.
Perfect. Okay, and our final question that we've got here today before we get logged off, can someone share some examples in the Blizzard bags for middle school and high school students for different content areas? Any thoughts from Moses or Nick?
Okay.
Oh, go ahead, Colleen.
I was just saying the Blizzard bags are really only used for our special education students once we get to middle school, and they are going to be specific to where that child's at and what they're working on, and I don't have a sample of that to share.
At West Chicago, we use the Blizzard bags for our low incidence special ed students as well. So they're pretty specific to the students that they're sending them home with.
Yeah, I think it can be as creative as you want it to be. If you had no technology available and you ask yourself, okay, what could I put in a bag that would help kids with these lessons? You don't want it to be a stack of worksheets, but some kind of interactive activities, manipulatives that they can use that are relevant to their ability level and the curriculum. So you're only limited to your creativity as to what could go in there.
Excellent.
Arlen, I have the back channel address. It's backchannelchat.com.
Okay, I'm going to post that in the public chat, backchannelchat.com.
Yeah.
Make sure my link works correctly here. Backchannelchat.com. My computer's moving slow, but it looks like it's pulling up the website. Yep, that's it. So I just posted into the public chat. Anybody is free to log in down there, click the link, and that'll take you to the website. All right, Nick, Moses, Colleen, I want to thank you so much for taking your time out of your busy schedules right now and sharing this information. We had about 380 people log in. We're down to just a little under 200, so I think that's a very successful webinar on e-learning. I will be sending out a link to this recording and a link to download the PowerPoints that were used from today as well. You are now free to click the X on your GoToWebinar control panel, and that will log you out of the session. Everybody take care of each other, stay healthy out there, and we'll hopefully be having more Ed Leaders Network webinars like this in the future. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.